So Sue asks, when you talk about going deep, really deep, but not so that you are asleep, I'm wondering where trance states fall into that continuum. Dancing, drumming, deep meditation states can put one in a deep state where one is highly aware of the inner state, but not of the outer reality, until returning from the trance state to waking consciousness. Is this state touching the deep state that I'm talking about? So is that like the trance state, when you become unaware of the world? There may be different kinds of trance states, so perhaps one cannot generalize, but it is true that one can sometimes go so deep into presence or pure awareness that the outer world falls away and all is left that would be in deep meditation, and all that's left is then this, we cannot be described. That's what's left is presence. That's all, just intense presence. It's also, there's a deep sense of aliveness in it, also joy, and that is why in Indian spirituality, that state is described as Sat Chit Ananda. 3 words, you string them together as one, which means, Sat means being, Chit, C-H-I-T, is consciousness, Ananda is joy or bliss. So that state, when you are immersed, one with the one, so to speak, is being, consciousness, bliss, Sat, Chit, Ananda. It is the deep realization of being itself, which is consciousness, and that is inherently joyful realization. That can happen if you can sit anywhere, close your eyes, go deep, go within, let go of all thinking, remain alert and present, and then what remains is just pure consciousness. Is that a trance state? I don't know if you want to describe it like that, you could. Often in nature, when I first experienced it many, many years ago, and I would sit on a bench wherever, let's say it was in London, or and in that, by talking about it, I'm going into it, so I don't want to disappear, but it's happening. It's so nice, I don't want to come out of it. And then then after a while I came out, opened my eyes, and was again conscious of whatever was there. And I had the impression that all the sense-perceived world was a diluted version of what I just realized within, in its pure form. So there was a pure form of being, and then all the world is a diluted version of the same thing. And I even had this weird thing that came to me. I said, oh, this is not a good analogy by people who are vegans or who are lactose intolerant. So it's a bad analogy for lactose intolerant people, but I'll say it anyway. Again, this is the cream, and this is the skimmed milk. that's so. Is that a trance state? Perhaps it could be described as trance. I don't know what people who are engaged in dancing, for example, Sufi dancing, whirling dervishes with their long skirts. It looks wonderful, and I'm sure it stops their minds. You can't go whirling around for an hour without and still be thinking. So it certainly stops your mind. Or drumming can also, she mentions drumming, if you get drumming, that will also stop your mind if you just go. And who knows where you go? I haven't tried that. So, but it does sound like, yes, it depends how one uses language. It is a kind of, you could describe it as trance. But then the main thing is then not to be confined to the realization of presence by going so deeply within that the world disappears. The art of living requires you to have one foot in both worlds. You have one foot in the being dimension, but you have the other foot in this dimension here. So you are balanced. You don't lose yourself out here, and also you don't disappear in there, at least not yet. You don't disappear there into being, and you don't lose yourself in the doing dimension. And so then you can be, one could say, you can then be present within and without. And that is the art, is to be present within and present without. And so as you are present within and without, when you are engaged in the outer world, first step, simple perception of the outer world, like a passive observer, then it's still relatively easy to feel the awareness behind the perception, or one could say to sense the essence of yourself as the consciousness that is perceiving this world. It's a good practice. And then you are in a relatively passive state, you're just contemplating. It's easier than when you start doing things, then that is a bit more of a challenge to maintain the balance between being and doing, because the more you're engaged in doing, the more the gravitational pull of doing will try to pull you out of your connectedness with the being dimension, and so you can lose yourself. And for example, doing through speaking, and you can easily see how people, the moment they start talking, something else takes them over, which is the conditioned mind. The moment they start formulating sentences, and especially if they talk about something that you feel is important, some matter that's really important, this is so important, and then you can see that they're being taken over completely by their mind, and then they are not there anymore. There's just the egoic mind talking, and amplified by some emotion, and usually not a pleasant emotion. So easy to lose yourself when you start interacting with other humans. So the easiest is, and it's a good practice, contemplating the world around you. The next step is while you are moving, walking, presence through movement, walking, doing this, then easy, simple actions. Stay present while performing simple everyday actions. That's good, you can do that. And then the next step is simple human interactions, in like short interactions, buying something in a store, going to the cashier, asking somebody for information. Oh, it's not too bad. And then you go on to more difficult things. When things are being discussed at work, or you're having a discussion with a friend about politics, Okay, then it's getting more difficult now. And again, but you've been practicing already before, so it should be a little easier. And then you're trying to call the airline to get you because your suitcase hasn't arrived, and you cannot speak to a human. So that's a good practice. You're waiting. Can you still get connected there without? Okay, yes. And then the most difficult is meeting your family members at Thanksgiving Day. Not for everybody, but for quite a few, because there you have the old patterns, the past that people carry, that they project onto you, old responses and so on. People with whom you share a lot of past is often more of a challenge to stay present with people with whom you share a lot of past, rather than a stranger that you meet in the street. That's relatively easy, because the person with whom you share a lot of past, this person will project the image they have built up in their minds of you, unless they're really present. They're probably not, but they will project the image they've built up in their minds of who you are, or the image built up over 20, 30 years or more. And so they're not, in many cases, they're not really seeing you anymore. Then they relate to you through the mental image they have of you. And until recently, perhaps, you had a mental image through which you saw them. And perhaps remnants, even though you are present, remnants of this mental image and the patterns associated with it is still active. So you have the past trying to reassert itself when you interact, and trying to obscure the present when you interact with people with whom you share a lot of past. You can then sense how the old wants to take over. And that's a good challenge, a wonderful challenge. When you meet difficult family members, as perhaps everybody has some. So Thanksgiving is a good one. Christmas is another. Or some people with their parents, or parents with their grown-up children. My mother doesn't understand me, they say. Well, if she did understand you, would that make any difference to you? I need my mother to understand what I'm all about. Why? Well, do you? That reminds me of Byron Katie. Is that thought true? Do I need to understand? Do I need my mother to understand me? Is that maybe not. I became very happy when I let go of the need for my mother to understand me. Then it was fine. I could allow her to be in a state of not understanding me. We could still be loving. I just had to listen to her constant words about, you should sort out your life. You had so much, you threw it all away. Why didn't you complete your PhD? It was stupid. And you inherited from your dad, I know that. But the end of the story is a happy one, because my mother was still alive when I, in the eyes of the world, became successful.